Hello. In the previous video, we Dockerized our application, and I hope you saw that. And now I want to be able to run a CI/CD pipeline to containerize the application, push it to Azure DevOps, push it to Docker Hub, and deploy it to a Kubernetes cluster, maybe perhaps using Argo CD. And we'll create a pipeline. We'll push the image to Docker Hub, and eventually we'll also add tasks to update the Helm chart or something to use Argo CD and deploy the application to a Kubernetes cluster. And to be able to run our CI/CD pipeline, we need actually agents. Now, you won't have this pool in your Azure DevOps. If you come here to settings and agent pools, you will only see Azure pipelines and default. And I'm not sure if those agents have Docker capabilities, but what we're going to do now, by the end of this video, you will have a pool of your own, and the agent in that pool will have capabilities to run a Docker CI/CD pipeline. And that's basically a self-hosted Azure DevOps agent, right? So this is the documentation for it. I'll provide the link for this in the description of the video. So we are working on Linux because we are working with Docker, and we'll run this agent as a Docker container on WSL. So these are basically the steps required. You just need to create a directory, and in that directory create this Docker file, and we'll be using Alpine, not Ubuntu. Ubuntu is heavy. All right. And another thing to note is the Docker file has a commented line. They tell us to uncomment the line and remove the agent user before this line if you want to run this agent as a root. Alright, we need to remove this and uncomment this if we want to run the container as a root user. So let's think about this. All Docker commands are privileged commands. You cannot run Docker commands without having privileged access. And so my container, if I want to be able to build Docker images from my container, then the container needs to have privileged access as well. All right. It so we will need to uncomment this line, and we will need to remove this. We'll be using this Docker file, so we'll remove this and we'll uncomment this. All right. After that, just get this script from here and save it into a .sh file, a shell script. All right. Once you're done with that, it will look something like this. So this is the project we're building so far. In here, I created a folder, dind. It stands for Docker and Docker. See, let me show you one more thing. There is another way to run Docker commands inside a Docker container, and the traditional way is to use Docker and Docker, which is basically you mount the socket of your Docker daemon into the container, and all the Docker commands that go from my container, they use the mounted Docker socket and communicate with the Docker daemon on the host. All right, that's how the standard way of running Docker commands inside a Docker is. But we're not going to do that. Why not? Because that requires the host machine to have Docker daemon. All right, but if we need to deploy this agent on a Kubernetes cluster itself, all right, that will be a problem because Kubernetes cluster does not have Docker daemon. It has containerd, and this approach does not work with containerd. It only works with Docker daemon. All right, that's why we are not following this approach. I'll add this in the comments as well, and some other articles to read about dind, Docker and Docker. All right. I'll provide the video, maybe. I'll review these, and if it's anything useful, I'll add the link to these in the description. But this is not how we're going to do it. Now, if you plan to run this agent on your host machine like a simple Docker container, then maybe you can do it. But if you plan to deploy your agents on a Kubernetes cluster, this will not work. Now, I'm here to show you the approach that will work. All right. So we created this Docker file and we created this start.sh file. Now, right here, we just need to get into WSL. All right. Now, let me check if I have any images. None. So let me show you the changes I made to this Docker file. So this is my Docker file now. See, I removed that agent part, that user part, and I uncommented this line. So this Docker file that they provide, it only runs a simple agent. This agent right here will not be able to run Docker commands. All right. Because to be able to do that, we need to do one of two things. The first option that we're not following in this series, tutorial series, whatever, is the Docker and Docker daemon socket mounting inside the container. We're not going to do that. The other way that we can do that is what I'm showing you. We can install Docker, its binaries, in the container itself. So when we are running the image, when we are building the image, they provided us a line they were installing some packages. So I added some packages that are required for Docker as well. All right. So when we build this image, it will install Docker in our container. And that's essentially what I added. And in the entry point, I am running the Docker daemon and then running the start.sh. But in the script that they provided, in the Docker file they provided, they were simply running the start.sh. But I'm not doing that. Now, how this entry point would work is it will start the Docker daemon in the background, and the primary process, the entry point for the container, will still be this start.sh. But before this start.sh runs, the container in the container docker d command will have been processed. So I want the Docker daemon inside my container to be up before the agent is up. That's essentially what I'm doing here. We can remove these comments. Alright, so this is the final Docker file that will be used. You can find it in the Git repo. Let me build an image from it. I'll name it. What I'll do instead is get back to the documentation, and they provide us the commands as well. Alright. So this is the command, but this assumes the Docker file is named this. We haven't done that. Alright. So we just need this. Let me first show you what will be the end result of all that we're doing here. So this is Azure DevOps. Let me refresh it and it will log me in. If we go to the project settings and go to agent pools, we get two pools, and I have this dind pool. I will delete it for now. See, right now my default pool doesn't have any agents. Alright, I want some agents here, or I want some other pool to have agents in them. Okay, that's what we're doing here. By the end of this video, there will be another pool here, that will have an agent running inside it, and we can use that in our CI/CD pipelines. All right. So the context, and we'll build it. That built the image for me, and let's get back to the documentation. Now we can run this container with the following command. I'll provide the link for this documentation definitely, but I will add the commands, like we don't need this, right? So I'll end the final format of the commands that we need in the README as well. You can find the commands there. Anyways, so this is the command that they provide us. Now it's taking some environment variables like the AZP URL. Let me show you what the AZP URL is. AZP URL will be this without the slash. Why without the slash? Because if you see the start.sh, control F, AZP underscore URL, yeah, you see right here, they are appending the slash on their own. So they are basically hitting the APIs for Azure DevOps, and they just need the base URL for the API. And this is the base URL for the API. So if you create your own organization on Azure DevOps, instead of Chaitanya D. Sharma, it will be the name of your organization. So this is the AZP URL, and then it needs a personal access token. Now I'm going to show you how to create a personal access token, and I will create a personal access token as well, but I will delete it after this video, so you won't be able to exploit it. Anyways, just come here, click on this icon besides your profile, this user icon, and in here you will see personal access tokens. It will get you to this page. In here, create a new token, call it agent or whatever, give it full access and create. You will get this token. This is essentially the password, a password you can use. All right, and you can paste it right here, and we can give the pool some name. Now this pool, this variable is just the name that you will see right here. Like default is a pool, Azure Pipelines is a pool. Whatever name you give here will be used just to create that pool via the Azure APIs. So I will create the pool name to be agent, and this is the name of the agent itself right here. Docker, I hope you can see it, Docker agent Linux. This is just the name of the Docker. It will be the name of the agent that will be inside the pool. So now we can run this command. All right, you'll see some logs. Started the Docker daemon for us in the background, and then it started running the Azure Pipeline agent. Agent pool not found. Agent. Oh, okay. I guess we need to create the pool by ourselves. New. How can I add a pool? Self-hosted. Give it a name. Agent. Grant permissions to all pipelines. Create. And now we can run the Docker container ls. You want to say Docker container remove CECC, and we can run it again. Oh, I forgot one more thing. Now I told you about it, but I forgot it. Let me first delete the container. Docker container remove 076. I told you before building any Docker image that we need to run this as a root. Alright, but that is not enough. The user inside my Docker container will be a root agent, root user, but it needs privileged access as well, because when we run Docker, it needs access to the IP tables. All right. So I saw that error right here, and that's how I remembered that we need to allow it privileged access as well. And that can be done by adding this parameter. So I'll add this command in the README as well. Check it out. I'll add this AGP token, but I will delete it from my account, so you won't be able to exploit it. Haha. So now if you run this, what's the issue? Is the spelling wrong? Privileged. Oh, privilege needs to be after Docker run. See, and now the Docker daemon is running. Daemon has completed initialization. So now it's running fine. And now you will see an agent in this agent pool. See, we have our agent running. And now this agent, because of the changes I've made to the Docker file, I added this and maybe some other dependency. I think maybe this, and made the entry point into this. If you don't know what this is, I'm just basically running a shell instance, an instance of the shell terminal, and -c flags tells it that whatever follows it, whatever string follows -c, process it as a command. So I'm telling shell that after -c there will be a string. You need to process it as a command. So the command will be dockered and then in the background, and because of this ampersand, this will be the primary process of the shell, and that will work as the entry point. So because of these changes to the Docker file, and because of this privileged flag, this agent will be able to run Docker inside it. I'll show that to you in the next video. So stick around. That's it for this one. Bye bye.